Maybe you guys have seen this in the past couple of weeks, but we're in the midst of a really awesome and really historic space mission, which is the Artemis 1 mission. So we have this incredible HD photo video of the spacecraft taking off a few weeks ago. And we can actually follow along with this mission in real time as this spacecraft goes around the moon in preparation for sending humans back to the moon. It's really an exciting time. We've been seeing pictures like this coming in from the news, right? This is actually a real photograph from the spacecraft. It's so far from the moon, it actually set a new record. This is the farthest spacecraft made for human transport. Okay, we've sent spacecraft further away, but this is for humans, and it has gone further from the moon than any other spacecraft made for transporting people. And this is a photograph where you see the moon and the Earth in the background. I want to just give you a little context on this mission, the Artemis mission, and where it's currently at, and even show you that we can see like a live view of the sky from the spacecraft in real time. So this is an awesome simulation, really, from NASA that shows exactly where the mission is at right now. So you zoom all the way in, you got the Earth, and if I zoom out, I can see kind of the orbit of the moon. That's what this gray circle is. And then it's showing these crazy blue lines, which is actually showing the actual path of the spacecraft over the past 2 weeks. It shows that right now the spacecraft is right here and the moon is over here. And I can switch even to the mission view, the camera on board the spacecraft, and see what the sky looks like from the spacecraft's point of view. Before I do that, though, I want to understand what's happening here in this mission with this insanely complicated graph, okay, or chart of this mission. But we'll make sense out of it, exactly what's happened along the way. So this whole thing starts with this mission. We are right now in stage 11, all right? Distant retrograde orbit, it says down at the bottom. And but let's just recount of how we got here, right? So stages 1, 2, 3, and 4 is this sort of whole launch sequence, right, where the spacecraft's getting up into the sky. It's letting go of its solid rocket boosters. It's dropping off the fuel tanks, and by the time we get to 4 and 5, right there, 5, we're in Earth orbit. All right, it's orbiting the Earth, and then we're getting ready for a heavy burn where it's using up even more fuel. Stage 6 for a trans-lunar injection burn. So if we go back to our view here, and we zoom in even a little bit on the orbit, we can do that. All right. We can see that when the spacecraft was taking off, that's this big blue line that brings it all the way out to the moon's orbit. That's what it means, like a trans-lunar injection, right? Trans-lunar injection burn, okay, to get to the moon. All right, then stages 7 and 8, it's making its way all the way out there. All right, it has these correction burns. We get to 9 and 10, right there. 10 is the key one, lunar orbital insertion. So it's at that moment that the spacecraft is actually entering into the moon, an orbit around the moon. And this is not a typical orbit around the moon, and that's why this has been making news and setting records. They're calling it a distant retrograde orbit. So this orbit is actually quite far away from the moon for other missions that we would typically send. And you can see here it's performing half or 1.5 revolutions in the orbit for that distance, 38,000 nautical miles from the surface of the moon. All right, so that's the current state of the spacecraft, and then it's going to start its path home, and that's the part marked in blue. So you can see that 12, 13, 14, right? 12 is actually leaving this distant retrograde orbit and starting the return, and it's going to pass back by the surface of the moon at 13, and then fly back 14, 15 to land back at the Earth. So that's what we're kind of looking at here right now. That's why we're seeing. Orion is the Orion capsule, which is part of the Artemis mission, is actually orbiting the moon in this distant orbit. I'm just going to reset the view here so that you can see that this cool little simulation actually allows you to see the view from the spacecraft, and then we can actually see in real time a live feed from the spacecraft as well. I was having a little bit of, there we go. This is taxing my computer. Here we go. Sweet. Okay, there's the spacecraft. And I can actually see this is the view from the spacecraft at this moment, all right, as it's orbiting around the moon. So with the right perspective, you can see the Earth in the background and you can see the moon. And that's why we get some of these pictures, which are showing both the moon and the Earth at the same time. It's just when it happens to be at the right place in its orbit that those two things are lining up. So you can do a YouTube search and you can actually find the live feed from NASA. I'll put a link in the description as well. A live feed from NASA from this capsule, the Orion capsule, right now. Now this is actually 12 hours ago, and it happened to be that the camera was pointing towards the moon and it wasn't overly bright, so you could actually see the moon in like a real-time view. But if I jump ahead to see the live broadcast at this moment, you can just see it's in the sunlight and the moon is not in the camera's field of view right now. So it's pretty sweet that we can check this in and we'll be able to follow along with the spacecraft the entire duration of this mission as it flies back up close past the moon and then as it flies back to the Earth. It's really incredible that we can see these things in real time as they're happening out in space. And of course, as we send people out on these missions in the coming years, we'll be able to follow along with them in just incredible detail and precision in ways that were never, possible back in the Apollo missions. All right, I just thought that was really cool. It's awesome to see, these things happening while we're taking this astronomy class. And so I just wanted to share it with you. All right, we'll talk to you later.